everyone, I'm Rou Qi from Tutorial Section 1. Welcome to my Legal Skills and Methods video presentation. So without any hesitation, let's get into the question immediately. So here is our question. Critically discuss and analyze the advantages and disadvantages on the reduction of the voting age in Malaysia from 21 to 18. So what actually causes lowering of voting age from 21 to 18? So I personally think that that's because of the increasing of awareness of people about the importance of lowering the voting age. In Free Malaysia Today News, I found this sentence. So Malaysia needs people who are able to look beyond what's popular and also to look beyond race and religion. So if you notice, most of our political party in Malaysia is actually based on race and religion. So for example, MCA and UMNO. So I'll further discuss this in my another part, which is advantages and disadvantages. So let's move on to the next point. So for the second point is the existence of organization, which is Undi 18. So there's actually a youth organization in Kuala Lumpur which promotes youth-centric agenda through democratic reforms. So with this existence, with this kind of youth organization, this actually brings up a lot more fresh ideas about the youth and also bring out a lot of new development of rules and regulations. So here we come to our pre-amendment position and post-amendment position. So for clarification, I'll be discussing same issues in both these positions. So it's voting age, electorate size, participation rate in politics in general, and also the societal reaction about this amendment. So for the pre-amendment position, which is before the amendment had been made, the voting age obviously and apparently is 21. And also the electorate size, according to the research I found from ISIS, the registered voters who had voted in general election 2018 is around 12 million, while the registered voters who did not vote in general election 2018 is around 2 million. So the sum is around 50 million, and which is actually quite small compared to the registered voters after the amendment have been done. So next we are going to discuss the third issue, which is the participation rate in politics in general. So I need to quote an act here, which is Universities and University Colleges Act 1971. So student activism is actually forbidden before the amendment made on this act in 2018. So here is some example that I found. In 1974, university students demonstrated with farmers in Baling Kedah to protest against the declining rubber price and rise in inflation. So this led to a further clampdown on student activism as the government amended the Universities and University Colleges Act (UUCA) in 1975. So this UUCA had actually been amended in 1975 and also in 2018. So only in 2018, students are allowed and it is legal for them to participate in political activities and also political protest. So before that, student is actually illegal to do that and is not allowed to do that. However, even though the amendment had been made in 2018, I still think that participation rate for a student to participate in politics issues is still very low, because at that time the voting age had not been lowered yet, and therefore I see no reason for them to discuss the political issues and also to participate in political issues. So for fourth issues I'm going to be discussing is societal reaction towards the amendment made, like before the amendment made. So I personally think that voting for Pakatan Harapan actually means that they agree to the manifesto, while the lowering of voting age is actually one of the manifesto. So however, this is only an assumption that I made myself. So they actually have more reasons to vote for Pakatan Harapan, so they can vote for them for another reason. Next, we are moving on to the post-amendment position. So apparently the voting age after the amendment made is 18 years old. And the electorate size, according to the research I found from ISIS, based on the official estimates, the voter base is expected to increase by 52.3% from 14.9 million voters to 22.7 million voters by 2023. So it's actually a quite large improvement or increases. So yeah, the electorate size after the amendment have definitely become more and become larger. So here we are going to discuss the participation rate of people in politics in general after the amendment made. So after the amendment made, I think that participation rate is actually higher than before. So this is because this actually increases the willingness and interest for youngsters to join politics, since they have to vote for, they need to vote, or they want it, or they are given right to vote for in the next general election. And also, like Said Sadek, he created a party named Party Muda, which is a age-based party, which contrasts to the race-based and religion-based parties like I said before. Yeah, so we can see that there is actually a large increase in youngsters participating political issues and also participate in the political party. Last but not least, we are going to discuss the societal reaction. So here is the research I found in this table. I put here. There's actually at the last column there, I am ready to vote, yes, no, not sure. So actually most of the people voted not sure. So I think most of them are actually unprepared to this lowering of voting age. So yeah, moving on to the next slide. I'm going to discuss advantages and disadvantages. So to make it like a mini debate, I'll be rebutting my own point. So for the first advantage, I think is to improve civic mindedness. So this because the fairer system actually can increases a willingness to adopt a civic culture. So what is this fairer system? So by giving them a right that equivalent to their responsibility that they need to bear, such as they can actually legal to get married and also legal to drive, they should also have the right to vote. So allowing them to vote is actually a fairer standard. So this actually can increase the civic mindedness. So besides that, parents can also act as a role model, which can also improve civic mindedness. So this is what I found in Washington Post. So when young people vote, their parents are more likely to vote too. Examining detailed administrative data from Denmark, I found a trickle-up effect in which parents vote because of their children, both to set the example and to keep up with their civic habits. So here we are. By allowing youngsters to vote, this actually have a trickle-up effect, which their parents, to set a good example for them, they actually are more willing to vote too. So this can increase the turnout rate, and which is definitely better for our country. So here's the advantage of improving the civic mindedness. So a strong civic mindedness would help achieve not only an active citizenry, but also ensure it is a more constructive one, and is thus a more dependable driving force behind progression towards a better society and a more cultured people. So we can actually rebut this point by giving points. Many of the youngsters may adopt extremist views. So this because, like what I've said just now, parents actually set good examples for their children, which means that their children can actually easily be influenced by them. Most of our parents and most of our family members actually always discuss the political issues among ourselves. So by this, this is actually quite common that we actually include race and religion in our discussion. So if the children are not mature enough to process all the discussion, this actually is a very sensitive issue to discuss with children. And also the political scene in Malaysia is actually not suitable for youngsters. Like I said just now, most of the political party in Malaysia is actually based on race and religion, which is a very sensitive issue. For example, MCA, the Malaysian Chinese Association, is a single racial political party representing the Chinese in the country. Especially when an 18-year-old teenagers is actually more unexperienced than a 21 years old adult, they can actually too easily to get affected by the other factors and get too extreme, which is not good. However, like what I've said just now, youngsters is easily get affected by the other factors. Youngsters is more immature. Youngsters is more unexperienced. Youngsters is actually more easily to get too extreme. Is actually a kind of discrimination because this is a stereotype, which is very difficult to get rid of it by youngsters. So by lowering the voting age, this actually can reduce ageism because stereotype that the youngsters are immature can actually be abolished. So how? It's because the discussion among parents and the children or their family members, relatives with their children about the political issues is actually inevitable if they are allowed or they are given the right to vote. By doing this, we can actually find out that most of the students have actually developed a very mature thinking about the political issues. Like they have their own thoughts about it, they have their own opinions about it. They can actually talk about it very maturely. So by doing this, the stereotype can get abolished. And also the concerns of the youngsters will be given more weightage. So the opinion of youngsters can no longer be neglected in order to win the coming election. Like what I've said just now, the numbers, the electorate size actually increase largely, which means that it's very important for the politicians to listen to their opinions and listen to what they need. So besides that, youngsters also play more important role of bringing these issues under the spotlight in parliament. For example, issues which concern the youngsters the most is actually the public education policies and also the climate change. So with this policy, with this lowering of voting age, we can notice that issues as such actually bear the same importance to the well-being of Malaysian citizens and therefore should actually also be centralized in parliament. However, the point that I have stated just now can actually be rebutted because the turnout rate may be low, even though the electorate size may increase largely. So, especially when most of the people are actually unprepared to vote. So in the research that I found just now, which I've quoted just now, at the last column, actually most of the people voted not sure whether if they are ready to vote, and also there are people who voted no, they are not ready to vote yet. So we can conclude that for the current society, they are actually not yet prepared to accept this change. And also the most importantly, the unpreparedness will spark societal backlash, leading to consequences such as blaming the young ones for unfavorable election outcomes and also feeling discontent with the government policies. So in the journal, I found this sentence: worldwide too, the trend is towards a gradual lowering of minimum voting age, but not without some backlash. Therefore, a backlash is actually inevitable and it can actually cause a lot of harm and bad consequences. So even though a backlash is inevitable, however, we can't ignore that lowering the voting age can actually improve the political scene and development in Malaysia, which is very, very, very important. So by lowering the voting age, fresh new perspective will actually brought up to the parliament. So for example, like Syed Saddiq advocated for active involvement in esports and wrestling. So this can actually widen the scope of political discussion, so it opens up possibility for changes to take place. So societal norms, demographics, perceptions are changing rapidly, and policies should keep up with the pace of this changing. To do so, youngsters must be able to vote in the current political scene of Malaysia, so that pressure is applied to consider new rules and regulations. Like what I've read in Free Malaysia's Today News, it was recently reported that Syed Saddiq had met with representatives of Malaysia Pro Wrestling about legitimizing professional wrestling. This is a good move given that it helps to highlight hidden talent that authorities may not currently recognize. And also because of his current involvement in esports, during 2019 national budget, it was announced that the government allocated 10 million ringgit to develop esports in Malaysia. Sites advocacy on esports also gained the attention of Razer CEO Min Liang Tan. Tan revealed that he will invest another 10 million to support the local esports industry. So this is actually a very great improvement that have made because of the fresh new perspective that brought out in the parliament. So however, a good development of a country actually rely on a good democratic system. Especially in country like Malaysia, we need a very good democratic system. So ideal democratic institutions must have an informed electorate, which is a full access to complete information before voting. So when people are unlikely to make an informed decision, this actually undermines democracy. So there are a few reasons there. So for the first one is we have not enough education about democracy and politics. So especially for 18 years old student, they have not enough education about politics and democracy in their secondary school and also primary school. So this is actually not that good for them to make a very informed decision and also make a very so-called right decision. So regarding to this matter, Dr. Mahathir actually stated in his speech that the Election Commission will conduct democracy awareness initiatives for Malaysians from primary school onwards. However, what we have seen today is the education system and the syllabus for primary and secondary school are not really related to politics and democracy up to this day. For a second reason is, although the Universities and University Act 1971 has been amended in 2018, there is little to no effect on the success of the youngsters in their political career. So here's what I found in East Asia Forum. So as a young person ascends the political ladder via party branches, they often find themselves sidelined in favor of older party members who have waited a long time to contest an election. The Asian mentality creates a form of oligarchy, which has meant that youth are often making way for older but not for more capable candidates. So even though they are willing to participate in politics or also join the political party, but they have actually a very little chance to actually perform themselves and to success. So for my conclusion, I personally think that it's actually more unsuitable for 18 years old teenagers to vote, because politics in our country actually require much more tolerance, maturity and also rationality from its participants, and therefore I think most of our youth in our country is not adept enough to reach that requirement. I think this because of the education of politics and also democracy is not enough for our youth, especially for students in which have just graduated from secondary school. So there's still a very long way for us to prepare our youth, and therefore right now in this particular time they are not yet prepared and they should not be allowed to vote at 18 years old at this particular time. And maybe after the improvement of our education system, of course we can do so after that. That's all. Thank you.